Kirk Jaffe is probably one of the best marketing people that I know. He's constantly referring business to me. The guy knows what he's doing. He's a marketing guru, as I would term it. Certainly helped my business, and it's such a pleasure to work with. You got to work real hard to keep up with him now. So just a great guy to be with.
Been very impressed with his integrity and his willingness to help others. He comes to every meeting, and he's more than generous in sharing insight that he has for marketing tips. He's helped me make a video that we're going to use with his clients and my clients. Completely open, completely willing to share. And I'm really glad that I've met him and we're able to work together in such a positive way.
I like to recommend people that I feel that can really get the job done. And so for me, referring to Kirk Jaffe, for me, sending people that I care about to receive the best service possible with someone that has the expertise and knowledge and that delivers. Now, I believe that when you have a combination, which is hard to find, someone that has the knowledge, the expertise, the experience of going through a lot of different cycles and understanding what the customer needs, and it's just a good all-around person that you feel that at the end of the day, not only would you want to do business with, you wouldn't even mind having them over for dinner. If that's the kind of person that you like doing business with, like I do, then I would really recommend you call Kirk Jaffe and do business with him on any level possible. I think you'll enjoy the process and the journey as well, which I think is important. A lot of people don't think about that. So that's my recommendation.
Well, I've known Kurt for going on 5 or 6 years. We met in a very odd but intriguing way. It's very refreshing to talk to somebody who thinks outside the box like that, who doesn't think about the bottom line all the time, and thinks about how he can help someone out, and knows that by helping that person out, he will reach the bottom line. And that's the type of person that I would want in my company.
All right. Yep. All right. Good morning, Khalil. Good morning, Sherry. Christine, love. Awesome. Excuse me. A little warmer in here than I expected it to be. But thank you all for coming. Can everyone hear me okay and see the presentation? Just type in the chat that you can see and that we're all connected here. Awesome. Thanks, Khalil. Okay, well, good morning. This is actually my first webinar in this format, so it's a little strange for me to be talking to myself. So keep the chat up because I like to have the interaction. And once we get through the slide deck, I'll close that, and then we can hopefully be all connected and see each other. And we'll get through that too. So I wanted to introduce myself. A lot of you already know me, but you probably don't know my background. So this is the webinar for the KJE Accelerator Mastermind. The group, I created this group because over the last couple of years, especially, I've met a lot of people who are trying to get into the real estate business, maybe have been in it 3 to 5 years, which would be basically a run up, right? Everyone that's been in a good real estate cycle, if you started in the last couple, 3, 4 years. But those of us that have been in it 25 years plus have seen a few of these cycles, and me in particular, I'll take you through my little presentation here. It's not long, and tell you about who I am and where I came from. It gives me a unique understanding and a unique skill set. So I wanted to open that up to people and be able to help others to avoid the problems that I've seen and experienced over the years. So these are some of the people that I've worked with over the years. We have attorneys, IT people, title people. That's who's on this screen right here. And it's been a pleasure to be able to get to know so many different businesses over the years. I've personally built over 25 companies, everything from real estate to technology to marketing to operations and support and consulting. So a lot of background and a lot of experience. Mostly getting into trouble, I can tell you, is how we learn, right? I think the best experience is the experience we got from doing something wrong. So what are the problems that we're facing and why did I create the mastermind? As I said, thanks, Khalil. It won't necessarily be 3 hours, folks. It's only if, let me further explain this. My intention here is to take about 10 minutes, tell you who I am and where I come from, and then jump into it and hopefully open this up and let you guys give me some questions so I can show you exactly how the solving process goes, how we pull the resources together so that you'll exactly understand what you're going to get when you join the mastermind. So what problems could we be facing? Clients, direction, struggling to build good relationships that are referral partners that last forever. We have marketing issues or a hard time reading people. We can't balance our work and life, unable to manage effectively, have a hard time finding the right staff. All of these issues basically boil down to the 5 areas that I've identified over the years of working and building companies. And it's really about knowing where you want to be, knowing where you want to get to, and making sure you're filling the gaps along the way correctly so that you can keep growing. To be honest, one of the problems I've had in business over the years that I finally have solved after all these years is hiring the right people and then giving them clear direction. So I think that the mastermind is a lot about bringing those resources together and understanding where we're trying to get to in whatever business we're running, whether it's real estate or a consulting firm or anything else, and making sure that we're supporting ourselves, our business, and our clients the right way. And that kind of eventually will take on all these different areas and so many more. So the solution, as I said, is having a blueprint. Mentors have mentors, and I'll tell you a little bit about mine and how I got to learn about business and operations at the level that I have over the last 25 plus years. It's about having a blueprint. And I see large companies that I've worked with and small companies who are always chasing the shiny object. I'm sure you have experienced that at some level. But when we chase the shiny object, we end up misdirecting our company a lot of times. And so it's about having principles and having operating procedures that we understand that integrate with who we are and are promoting our healthy lifestyle that will help us make good decisions. And that way we don't waste time, because really all we have is time, right? I've worked 20-hour days and I've worked 3-hour days. And I can be honest with you, when I'm focused and thinking and centered, the 3-hour days are more productive than the 18-hour days. And I'm not as exhausted. And therefore, maybe I get a lot out of an 18-hour day, but it's not sustainable. So I'm exhausted the next day or 2 days or 3 days. I'm sure you guys have experienced that too. So we want to make sure we're making decisions and building off of what our plan is, not what could be exciting in the moment. And that's part of the mastermind, helping to make those decisions, or at least doing the research for you. When you join the mastermind, we do a lot of things. One of the things that we're going to do, this is an automatic slide, but in the effort of creating relationships and controlling our transactions and having great referrals, is really about having good resources, right? It's about, so one of the things that we produce here at KJE is a report, and we charge $5,000, and you can put any question you want into KJE as a consulting firm, and we'll do the research for you. We'll create the vendors, we'll find the legal aspects, we'll write the business plan for you. It's a comprehensive solution. And those are the same reports that we're going to create here today, and also that we're going to put in the archive for anyone that joins the mastermind. So even if your business is real estate, but you're looking for growing a call center, there may be a report on establishing a call center with all the resources that you would need, legal and vendor-wise, to make sure that that works correctly. So you can use the reports from other industries to support yourself. That's kind of the point here. And then, of course, we'll help take you through it. If you have a question about a report, just ask it ahead of time. And then when we do our monthly webinar, which we're going to run once a month on Fridays, we'll take the time to go through those. So I'm basically dedicating my whole Friday to this group, which means if it takes an hour and we only do one case study, that's fine. If we have 15 and we stay on there for 15 hours, or you guys drop off and I keep doing case studies and build the reports and put them in the archive, I want to make sure that you guys have all the support you need to succeed. So that's what it's really about. And what we learn, all these different things go into it. It could be time management, it could be financial matters. It's really about you and what you need. So again, it's a free flow situation in that you present to me what your potential problem is. Give me a few days to do the research, but I'm going to touch on all areas, whether it's marketing, life balance, financial, legal, whatever I can find and I can put into the report to support you in your success, it's going to be there. And then you guys will have access to that so that you can reference back to it and use those vendors. I don't make anything from the vendors. I literally just bring the best people. So I spend, I'll get to that in just a second because we have a slide here coming up. So mentors have mentors. And these are 4 of the many that I've had. But I wanted to highlight these 4 because this is where I really learned how to do what it is I do in the corporate world. I started out after college, I went to Tulane University and majored in political science, international relations, and a minor in Spanish. Although I can't speak a word of Spanish, I can read it pretty well. So, oh, we can't see the slides. Okay, hang on a second. Let's share that screen. Perfect. Now, hopefully we can see the slides. Okay, let me pull this chat up. Good, thank you. You and everyone see this. Oh, great, awesome. Okay, so here we go. Thank you, Darlene and everybody. Again, my first webinar in this format, so clicks and buttons, we never get worried about them. It's a lot like business, guys. You don't know what's going to come up. So it's about being calm, thinking things through, taking a moment to make the adjustments as we need to, and it's no big deal. So you guys didn't miss anything. The early slides are, well, I'll just take you back real quick if I can. Let's escape that and we'll start here. Okay, so what problems could be facing? We went through this slide just so you could see it. And then what's the solution? Having a good roadmap and having good vendors around you and good relationships. That's how I've always been successful at solving these things. And then what you can expect to be in control, to know how to create good relationships and how to evaluate them, and then have long referral relationships that are going to feed you. I have never done much marketing in my business. I am a good marketer and I do marketing for other companies, but I've always generated my business by referral only. Basically, 95% of my business is by referrals. It's not because my marketing isn't great or successful, it is. But what I like to do is build great relationships, and then I can manage 30 or 40 relationships throughout the year, and I get all the business I want, versus having to manage online marketing, social media. It's such a time suck, and it's expensive, and it actually doesn't really convert. One of the things you learn when you work with me is the difference between, and this is actually one of my trainings that I give people when I consult, is the difference between marketing, sales, delivery. So marketing is getting people to raise their hands to say they're interested. Sales is explaining that what you think you're buying is not exactly what you're going to get, and there'll be some nuances to that. And then delivery is delivering what you promised and what's in the contract. So everyone thinks that online marketing and social media is all about sales, but it's actually not. It's about branding. Very few companies make sales through the internet. They're branding. And we do have a platform here at KJE where we can make sales through the internet, and we are very tied in with the affiliate marketers and all the back-end systems that most humans don't even know about, because you have to be a big corporation to get access to them. But really, I'm about saving time. I'm about doing it right the first time. I learned years ago, measure twice and cut once, when I was in a shop class, and the teacher taught me that, which was very useful. So mentors have mentors, and these are 4 of mine, as I said. Thank you for updating me on the slides. So Hartmut Hankey, when I came out of college at Tulane, I decided to become a chef, because what I really wanted to do was make policy to the president during wartime. And I found out at 18 or 19 years old, 20 years old, that I would have to write a bunch of books and get a doctorate degree and teach, and then maybe I would get appointed to that position. And I didn't have the patience for that. I'm sure many of you can appreciate that at 18, 19 years old. Who wants to wait? We want an instant result, right? So I went to become a chef. I then went to work for this guy named Hartmut Hankey, who was the first master chef in the entire world. A very difficult man. We worked 20 to 22-hour days. I'm not exaggerating. I lived 2 blocks from the restaurant and walked back and forth, and literally destroyed my life. I got to a place where I was drinking 6 beers a night just to fall asleep because I was so amped up throughout the day. And I only had 2-3 hours of rest between shifts. And my grandmother passed away at one point while I was working for him. And he looked at me and said, well, is she dead? And I said, yeah. And he goes, well, then you have to stay here and work because you can't do anything. And it really started me down this path of 2 ways of thinking. One, I'm not going to compromise myself ever again. And I'm going to live life on my terms, and I'm going to have good work-life balance. And 2, I learned about being able to listen to others. I'll tell the story quickly. Hartmut gave me a whole case of mushrooms one day. I don't know if you know what a case of mushrooms is. It's about the size of a computer, a tower computer. And he gave me a little pot. And he said, cook the mushrooms, in his heavy German accent. And I sat there staring at them because if you made a mistake in Hartmut's kitchen, he would start screaming at you. And in fact, one day I cut a strawberry the way that he didn't want me to, and he put a knife to my throat and slammed me up against a cooler, at which point I left the restaurant. So protect yourselves is what I learned, right? Protect yourselves in business. That's part of the mastermind. How do we avoid problems? How do we see forward and build our relationships and our contracts in a way that we're not going to get into trouble? And if we do get into trouble, we have exit strategies. That's a huge part of what the mastermind's all about. So Hartmut handed me these mushrooms one day, and I stared at them because I didn't know what to do because there was no way all these mushrooms were going to fit in this pot that was like this big. And finally he came over, he started yelling at me, and he dumped all the mushrooms in the pot. And they literally, if this was the level of the pot, the mushrooms came up to here. And the last one balanced way on top. And I go, this is ridiculous. I don't understand, right? He was telling me what to do, but I was in my own way. And I wasn't able to hear him and see him. And so he did it. And about 15 minutes later, the mushrooms cooked down from here all the way to just below the top of the level of the pot. And it made an amazing mushroom sauce, essence, whatever you want to call it. It's broth, mushroom broth. And so I learned from that, things are not always what they appear. And it's important to be able to take the advice of people that have done what it is you want to do and trust that it's going to work out. My other mentor, Joel, has things to say. He's a branding and marketing guy, and I've been learning from him for 23 years now. One of the best marketing people in the country, Joel Bauer is. And he taught me, or he said one day in a kind of a joking way, one of his mentors told him, first you do it my way, and if it doesn't work, you'll find your own way. But it will work because I've already done what it is you want to do, and I've been through the problems that you want to solve. So between Hartmut and Joel, I've learned how to communicate, pay attention to the details, and really for me, one of the most important things in this world is reading. And I see it every day. I see it in my mortgage business. I see it in my consulting business. People don't read contracts. People don't read the rules. People don't know how to find the rules. In my mortgage business, I'm one of those strange people that likes to read the rules once a year. Well, if you read the Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac underwriting guidelines, they're each about 800 pages. I think one is 690, the other one's 800 pages. I read both those documents every year. Why? Because I want to know what changed. And so that when I'm advising my clients in the mortgage world, I can tell them, watch out for this. This rule has changed. Let's set your file up differently so we don't run into a problem. It's the same thing. Tom Ward taught me empathy in business. Tom had a terrific mortgage and real estate company years ago. He's retired now, back to Arizona, but he was out in the Philadelphia area and New Jersey for years. Chicago, I should say. Sorry, he was in the Chicago area and all those suburbs. But Tom really taught me about listening to the clients, but not just listening to your clients, listening to the scenario, because inside the scenario are all the things you need to know, whether it's things you need to know to avoid a problem or things you need to know to optimize success. Yeah, darling, you'd like to read too. It's kind of a sick thing. I also read insurance contracts. I read title policies. I read loan documents. I read every word of anything that comes across my desk, because if you don't know the details in writing, that's going to cause trouble. And so part of this mastermind is also asking for our opinion on things like that. If you run into a deal and you don't have time to read the 65-page document, send it over. We'll read it. We'll summarize it. We'll put it in the report. We'll tell you what vendors we think you might need to protect it. And will get you on your way so that you at least have a good summary of it. So that's another way that you can use the mastermind, because we love reading. And I take every single contract I've ever touched in my entire career, 25 years, and I've saved it. So today I have about 100,000 documents, whether they're Excel spreadsheets or contracts or presentations or summaries of projects that have been going on. I keep all of that, and I have for many years. So when you work with the mastermind, you're going to get access to all those archives, and we'll make it easy and searchable and make it something that can be really useful for you while you're a member of the group. So Tom taught me that. Tom taught me how to listen, because there's so much in the reading and the listening that changes the game. And the person, in my opinion, that reads and interprets better will win more often at the time, in business, in relationships, and certainly in doing real estate transactions, if that's your gig. Rosario is a good friend of mine. She was Treasurer of the United States under George W. Bush, and she taught me about servant leadership. Rosario is one of those people that is just so kind and soft-spoken, and she has children with disabilities, and she's had an unbelievably difficult life coming up from Mexico with no money in her pocket as an immigrant, and then rising up to Treasury of the United States, really by accident. When she tells the story, it's amazing to hear the story, how she was online. She was a mayor of a small town called Huntington Beach here in California. And one day she was at a Republican event. She's a Republican. And George Bush walked by her and said, "I think I'd like you to work for me." This is George Bush Jr. And 3 days later, she got a call from the White House and was like on this road to amazing experiences. So I've learned from Rosario how to step into something bigger, how to not be afraid of the unknown, and how to really patiently interact and engage with the people around you so that you can create the right path. It doesn't mean you're always going to be successful, but it can improve your success rate. So mentors have mentors. These are 4 of mine. But my favorite mentor was my grandfather. That's my grandfather, Ben, there. And that's me when I was about 19 or 20 years old. I still have those glasses. You'll see me wearing them periodically. I used to wear those glasses when I was a chef because I could see really clearly, and they were so small that the grease didn't stick to them. So I was never without ability to see or move. And I like that. I keep those glasses because it also reminds me when I put them on, I think to myself, okay, where do I have to be nimble? Where do I have to be able to see without getting bogged down in all the details or the grease that can sometimes cover our vision, right? But Ben was an amazing guy. Ben was an adventurer. He was so great at connecting with human beings, talking to people. He was afraid of nothing, as far as I could tell. And he was just so kind. And he grew his insurance business and retired and grew a great family and was such a supportive grandfather to me, even though he came through terrible adversity, the Great Depression, growing up in Cleveland, where I grew up in Cleveland. He also grew up in Cleveland. But when he grew up, Cleveland was collapsing. Cleveland at one point was a huge financial center for the country. And sometime around 1930, after during the Great Depression, after the Roaring '20s, really had hard times. So Ben tells me a story once when I was a kid about how he got drafted into the Army, but nobody assigned him anywhere. So he's at this base camp in Seattle, and he was a card player. He loved to play poker and gin rummy. And he ended up playing poker with all the generals at the, because he wasn't assigned, he was lost in the sauce, right? He was in the ether. So he's playing cards, and the generals say, "Why haven't you been assigned yet after 3 weeks of living in a hotel playing cards with these guys?" And he says, "Well, I don't know. My father trained me in dental supplies, so I have a dental background." So they assigned him, these generals they played cards with, assigned him to the dental lab in Seattle. So he never had to go serve on the front lines in World War II. He was in Seattle. He walks into the lab, and the dentist says, "So what kind of experience do you have in dental laboratory stuff?" And he says, "Well, my father used to sell dental supplies. But I'm assigned to you now, so you're going to have to deal with me," because the order came straight from the generals. And so what did I learn? I learned that we can create whatever situation we want, right? It doesn't always have to be ideal, but if we act with integrity, and part of the reason that this mastermind is by application only is because I want to make sure we're with the right integrity. I'm going to teach you things in the mastermind that will enable you and empower you to sidestep a lot of problems. but that can be used for good or it can be used for bad. And I don't want people getting into trouble, and I don't want people hurting others based on what I'm teaching. So it's by application only. We want to make sure it's a really tight group with high integrity, and that people are using the knowledge the right way. So here I am with Joel, the importance of mentorship. Again, I can't say it enough. The best way, the fastest way to cut the learning curve. In my case, I can help you reduce 25 years of learning curve. It's probably even more if you consider over the last 25 years, my average workday has been 15 hours a day, 6 days a week. I've seen a lot, I've learned a lot, I have a lot of contacts. I maintain a database alone of over 3,000 vendors in all areas. These are attorneys throughout the United States for real estate or business. These are title companies. These are marketing companies. These are digital marketing companies. These are really any kind of vendor you might need. I maintain this database, and I interview these people every year to see how their practice is going. And because when I make a referral, I want to make sure that you're getting the most out of it and you're getting the right solution. I spent 8 years running a company called Peak, and this was from 2008 to 2014, 7.5 years. And Peak was the third largest default loan servicer. So if you remember 2008, that's when the financial crisis and the Great Recession happened. I was on the front lines. So I personally have signed on over 250,000 foreclosure files. I personally have funded over $1 billion in mortgages. I've run 17 companies for this platform in all areas of real estate. I went to Washington, D.C. with Rosario Marin, and I met with the House Financial Services Chair, and I was there to help craft the regulations of Dodd-Frank. So Dodd-Frank was a law that came into play in 2009 and 10, but they didn't have any rules around it. So the way the government works is first they tell you what the rule is, then sometime later they tell you how to comply. So I went to Washington to help them fix and create the regulations of how to comply with those rules. So I have some really good insider understanding of what the intentions were there. And that's why one of the reasons why I'm so good at real estate today, because I've had the ability to be around others that know a lot more than I do. And they taught me. This is Michelle. She's a woman that worked for me, and I helped her with some marketing and just helped her grow her own identity over years of working with me. And it was great because now it's great to see her and her family. I maintain these relationships. Michelle and I worked together over 15 years ago, and we still communicate. So again, that story of keeping long-term relationships is really what's important to me. And personalities are really the most important. When we're looking at vendors and we're evaluating those 3,000 vendors I mentioned to you, I'm looking for personality, because you can find the product anywhere. But if you're a high D personality, meaning you like a result immediately, and you go and you work with an attorney who's a high C personality, meaning they're all about compliance, you're not going to relate to each other. And what's going to happen is the vendor is going to get frustrated because they don't feel like they're giving you the best. And you're going to get frustrated in that scenario I laid out because it's going to take too long to get the result and too much explanation. And that high D personality doesn't want that. So we want to make sure that we're aligning the personalities. So again, what are we all about here? The Mastermind is about leveraging our relationships, finding new streams of revenue, or expanding the streams that we already have and making sure that we're implementing them correctly. Living life on our terms, not getting sick. You know, as I mentioned, I have had these long work days, which ultimately culminated in me having an autoimmune condition. About 8 years ago, I woke up one morning and literally couldn't walk. And it took me 2 years to get back on my feet, and a lot of money because Western medicine and insurance didn't cover this problem and didn't have a solution. So one of my main mandates is leveraging our knowledge, leveraging our resources so we get the best outcome without spending all of our time on it. And I don't like stress. I really want to live in a place of low stress because it's just not needed. There are better ways. So that's what I'm all about. So when you work in the Mastermind, we're about attracting the right results, converting it and providing you the report that you need so that you have ongoing support. We want to leverage the information, leverage the network, leverage our joint knowledge, and make sure that you are moving forward so that, again, you don't step into problems that you have to back out of and then start over again. Because it's that start and stop in business that it's not necessarily bad. Starting and stopping is not bad. but it is costly. It's costly in time, it's costly in money. Every time you stop a process and have to restart it from scratch, it costs a lot of energy, it costs a lot of money to restart it, and you'll still have the necessary the outcome you want, or the knowledge of what the outcome is going to be. So we want to attract and convert, provide the right reports, provide the right solutions and the right resources so that you can retain your business, meaning we're growing the business, we're supporting the business. It starts to take on a life of its own, and the work, the activation energy that it takes to get it going becomes less and less, so that we can focus on new areas. And that's, part of the mastermind. So things that you'll learn, and I cut this presentation down because I'm not here to pitch you. I just want to tell you a little bit about me and then get into solving some problems, answering questions. But some of the things that we teach lead management and marketing. And one of the ways that I do that briefly is I keep an assistant who sits in the middle of my world. And I'm very quick to replace assistants. If they're not treating my client base correctly, if they're not building the platform the way that we need it, I'm okay with replacing people quickly. I learned years ago, be slow to hire and fast to fire, because again, it's very expensive to have the wrong solution. But what I do when I'm generating leads is I have my assistant communicating with me. And then the assistant is also communicating with these vendors, whether I'm using 1 or 3,000. The assistant is constantly in communication with them. And then we have the vendors talk to the clients, and the clients talk to the assistants, so that we have a feedback loop. And then we can create the key players. Well, this is how I communicate. Those of you who have worked with me already know that I do my mortgage business with a man named David. So I come in, I do the strategy. David, in this case, sits in the vendor seat. He works with the clients, and he makes sure that everything moves forward. And then he and I are constantly talking to make sure that we're sidestepping problems or updating solutions or checking timelines, things like that. But what I'm doing on the backside of this is building my next relationship. In a real estate transaction, for example, you have all these different people: a buyer, a seller, an agent, 2 agents, title company, escrow company, business managers. And if you connect with all those people, those are all lead sources. And if you've helped their clients to be successful, then those people are going to want to do business with you. So some of the people I see on the webinar here, I've talked to about lending issues and maybe paying off loans to private investors who are also new in investing and maybe didn't build their documents correctly. So I don't look at those relationships as a conflict. I look at it as a way to help the lender make sure that they're set up for success in the future. Why do I do that? 1, it's the right thing to do. 2, if I help the lender, then the lender is going to want to work with the client more often. And potentially the lender will want to work with me down the road. I do a lot of different things. I can service loans, I can analyze loans, I can do a lot of different things in that world. That's part of my expertise. So I always want to build my network, right? So in every transaction, we should be looking for how do we build the next relationship that's going to feed us going forward so that our business becomes self-reliant, right? We don't have to keep starting and stopping, as I mentioned earlier.
Especially during COVID, it's very important. We cannot get our clients the same way we used to. So we really have to impact ourselves and move forward with old-fashioned ways of doing business.
So that's Lois.
My name is AJ Gill. I am a local coach here in Los Angeles, California. I would have to say one of the things that has stood out the most in this whole entire 50G's training has been the ability to understand my worth and what I bring to the table for my clients.
So that's Lois and AJ, 2 totally different industries. Lois is in real estate. I consulted with her on how to build her real estate business. She'd been in it for 10, 15 years, but had never broken through that $100,000 mark. And after I made some tweaks to how she communicated and how she looked at her relationships, exactly what I just showed you, we took her to $300,000, and she's made that same money, $300,000 or more, for the last 5 years, and she's not going to stop. So a great opportunity to work with somebody who was open to seeing her world in a slightly different way and using the mindset and the mentorship that I provide to leverage it and get more. In her case, she was able to triple her income in 12 months and then sustain it. So AJ works in the voice industry, and AJ's big problem was he was just underselling himself. AJ was, I don't know if you guys ever saw the show, not The Voice, but the other one, American Idol. AJ was on the first season of American Idol and came in 8th place. He got to the finals. And so an amazing talent with amazing background, but he wasn't able to get his voice coaching business up and running because he didn't believe in himself and he didn't believe in his value. So I worked with him and we established a better value point for him. And he was able to go on and support his family and work less hours and really do amazing things in his voice consulting business. And he's doing great today. So, and this is what makes me proud. Part of the mastermind is I feel proud when I'm able to help others succeed. So I go out of my way. Another thing that you might learn in the mastermind is marketing.
$70,000 to put in my pocket. So I can't thank you enough. And, you know, if I choose anybody to do business with, it's you.
So that's Joe. Joe is amazing. Joe had a technology company and I was able to leverage him as a vendor and install him into one of my clients that I was consulting with. We saved the client over $400,000 in expenses and closed all their gaps because they were a compliance firm for mortgage industry. And they had all kinds of openings in their technology suite, in their stack that exposed them and the banks that they worked with. So they had a huge potential liability problem. So we were able to close all that, save them a bunch of money, get Joe in there and build him a long-term client that he still works with. This is Tom DiMercurio, one of my mentors, but also a client. Tom came to me because he wanted to build a default services platform in 2007. This is before the great crash, the Great Recession. And so I worked with Tom and his team, and we built an entire platform for default servicing. And Tom is one of really the leaders of all of the mortgage industry. Tom ran a company called Fidelity Default Solutions. He was their chief operating officer. He was one of the first guys to securitize a subprime mortgage with First Boston Bank back in like 1988-ish. So he, great knowledge, a great attorney, and somebody that taught me a lot about how to build infrastructure. So I bring some of his teachings into the mastermind too. So we're going to wrap this up. We're about 40 minutes in, and then I want to get to answering your questions. So why are we here, right? What's the mastermind all about? It's about leveraging joint knowledge, about leveraging my experience and my contacts and my ability to create solutions so that we can spend more time with our family. I want to spend more time with my family. I want to be healthy. I've been through that, as I said, that experience of waking up and not being able to walk. I see all kinds of people around me passing away. I mean, Priscilla Presley, his daughter, Lisa Marie, I guess, passed away yesterday at 54 years old, a week shy of her 55th birthday. Probably genetic, it sounds like, but still, isn't it more important that we enjoy every aspect of our life? It's really our family and our communities that are most important. Throwing up that white flag, right? At what point are we going to stop grinding it out, getting into trouble, leverage the opportunities and the knowledge of other people so that we can expand, grow, and live our life? And making it so easy, anyone knows the 80-20 rule. It goes two ways. 80% of your results comes from 20% of your effort. So why do I say that? If you're in a mastermind with people that already have the solutions, your effort goes way down. So you get better results with less effort. And the other side of that is 80% of your money will come from 20% of your client base. So that's about being smart about how we choose and what we want to work on, evaluating deals properly, evaluating business relationships properly, looking into marketplaces and deciding if there really is an opportunity to sell into that marketplace, or if it's just something that we're, pie in the sky, excited about in the moment, but really doesn't have a blue ocean to market to. And that's another one of those concepts we talk about, blue ocean versus the red ocean in marketing. Briefly, the red ocean is where everybody is, and the blue ocean is where nobody is. In my world, I'm building a business right now for modular building financing. I'm direct with all the factories in the United States that build modular buildings for homes, and they need financing. So that's a blue ocean. I'm not, right now in the mortgage industry, in my mortgage business, I'm not really promoting it so much because interest rates are high and it's kind of a bloodbath. And I'm looking for a specialty product. I'm looking to help people that are aggregating multiple properties, that want to use the leverage of their corporations properly, that want to set themselves up as investors for long-term success with minimal liability potential. So I've stepped into a blue ocean by looking at manufactured housing financing, by working with investors, and stepping out of traditional residential mortgages for now. I still market for them. I have a great marketing program. I get a lot of residential mortgages, but I pass them off to my vendors. I don't do that work right now. I'm focused entirely on the mastermind and the people that are in this world with me. Other things we do, sales tracking. This is Robin, who I worked with, who was appreciative because I was able to find the gaps in her business. And this is how I was able to close her business, create solidarity for her and a great, strong platform so that they were able to grow. And they ended up taking their business and selling it. That often happens to me. I work with clients and I put them through the process. And before you know it, they're selling their company because they're able to make more money because it's organized the way it's supposed to be. So I'm not going to spend time with all the people. This is all for a different purpose. So we're going to skip through this. This is
My name is
Arlene.
Arlene Krantz, and I'm a business mentor and coach. And I love Kirk. Kirk Chaffee is the nicest guy, not just nice, because I mean, that's one thing, but I trust him. And if I'm going to work with somebody, I better trust them. And he's honest, has integrity, and he's just a great guy. He'll help you all the way, any way he can. And that's what I look for. And I would imagine you would want to look for. So Kirk Jaffe, he's the guy to go to.
Thank you, Arlene. So Arlene is terrific. I'm going to close this. Well, I guess we can save it. Let's see now. How's everyone doing? And so at this point, what I want you to do is start thinking about what types of potential problems or concerns or questions you have in your business right now. David joined the call. I'm excited that he's here. And Fahim is one of our vendors. He helps us with all our social media, and he is amazing. He also does graphic design. He helps us build support systems. And David, as I mentioned earlier, is helping with supporting the mortgage origination, the commercial mortgages, and also the strategy. David and I work together as brokers. We've sold over $200 million of mortgages together and bought mortgages together in bulk. We buy and sell bulk packages of real estate owned. And we also we'll broker whatever businesses we can find, to be honest with you. It's not to say that we're doing everything. I say it that way because right now, David and I are working in the cannabis industry. Why? It's a blue ocean, right? So we have an opportunity to broker some licenses, and that's something that he and I are working on. So again, when you work with this mastermind, you're not isolated into one area. We're going to be able to expand out and find you solutions into whatever your potential problem might be. So if you have a question, type it in the chat. I would prefer if we could figure out how to get everyone so that we can see everybody. But I don't know if I can do that right now. So if you have a question, go ahead, type it in the chat. This is anything. It's about, what your problems are in your business right now. And if you don't type one in, then I have a few already that I can address. So I'll give you just a second. And if nobody types anything in, we'll go ahead and do the next thing here. Let's see. Love, Lisa. Hi, Khalil. So, okay. So let me go through and give you a couple examples of things that I'm working on right now in my business that might be interesting to you. So this is in particular a real estate transaction. The client bought property about a year ago. And a year ago, things were great. Interest rates were low, property values were on the rise. There was really no indication in the near future that there was going to be an immediate collapse. Okay, Sherry, we'll get to this too. So what happened was they got into this deal. They need to refinance now, but they don't own the property long enough to get cash out potentially. And we found out that the loan on the property we're trying to pay off was not written correctly. It was written as a construction loan without any of the supporting construction documents. And that's a big problem. Why is that a problem? Well, you need to have title insurance. So all loans of all types, whether it's a private loan or a commercial loan or a bank loan or a venture capital loan or whatever, any type of real estate is going to have a title policy attached to it. And title policy just ensures that everyone did what they were supposed to do, and the title company is going to indemnify or protect the loan and all the parties from something going sideways or disagreement. So in this case, the problem is if you draw a set of documents as construction documents, but you don't have any of the supporting materials you need to prove the construction loan happened, when you go to pay off that loan, the title company is going to not be thrilled and will potentially not insure the loan. So one of two things will happen. Either you won't get insurance, you won't be able to complete your transaction, or B, the insurance is going to be very, very expensive and very restrictive. They're going to cut off all the things that protect you and protect themselves as an insurance company. So what we were able to do, and David helped me with this extensively, is we had to go back in, basically rebuild the entire construction loan file and make it so that it represented accurately what happened throughout the transaction, not only the intention of the transaction, but also the outcome of the transaction, so that the title company would move forward and we could execute the payoffs and record things and get this client out of trouble. So what did that involve? That involved a series of lawyers. That involved working with the title companies. That involved working with the lender, the private lender, and the borrower. And we have also some other external parties in there. So what I'm doing as we work through this, we've got it all stabilized. Now we're going through the closing process of it, of the loan. I'm going back and I'm working with all those people individually. Remember that slide about how do we get future business? Well, we want to lead with an open hand, right? We want to always be supportive of all the parties and respectful of all the parties involved, so that not only do those relationships among them persevere and grow, but also David and I and my vendors can have an opportunity to grow our relationships too. Why do I want to grow my relationship? This isn't a financial thing. This is about evaluating the best people in class, the best people in the industry, so that I can bring better vendors back to the mastermind, back to my world, so that we're protecting people and using the right vendors, no matter who they may be. So that's the kind of stuff that you're going to see here. We have a question, two questions there. Okay, so we'll answer Sherry's first. If I offer seller financing to an owner-occupied borrower, am I precluded from putting a balloon payment on their loan? It's a great question, Sherry. First things first, you have to separate owner-occupied borrowers from investment borrowers. The law, the restrictions, the loan documents, if you're doing seller financing, are you going to set it up as a situation where these people are going to buy the property and move in as basically tenants, and a portion of their rent is going to go towards down payment down the road? So it's more like an option agreement, an option to buy. So what we first want to identify is what's our outcome, right? So if we're trying to just sell the property and we know that we're going to get 20% down from the borrower, and we're doing an 80% loan seller financing, that's fine. We want to book that as really almost essentially a straight Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac loan. So we're going to go into the loan documents that we have. And I have, like I said, I keep hundreds of thousands of documents around me and in my archives. So the first thing I would do is identify what state are we working in, because the owner occupied laws for lending change in each state. Really, when you boil that down, it comes down to, is that state a foreclosure state or an escrow state? Foreclosure state, as I term it here, is a attorney state, meaning you have to have an attorney to close the final documents. And if you have to foreclose on that person, because they didn't pay, right? Then you have to go through a legal process through the courts to do that. The other option is a trustee state, where you can use a third-party trustee, and that process works completely differently. The loan documents that you would need to originate that loan would be slightly different than the ones that you would use for an attorney. So we need to identify the state. We need to identify what's the purpose of the loan. And if it's a loan where the person doesn't have 20% down, what we want to do is perhaps protect you, right? Because we don't want investors setting a situation up where they're going to be stuck having to foreclose. What's that mean? You sell the property, you sell their financing. It's not really a 20% down situation. You're doing 100% financing, and the tenant, if you will, the new owner, is paying you monthly towards that down payment so that they can ultimately refinance on their own and take you out. Well, that's not really a sales situation. That's more of a landlord tenant situation with the wrong documents, right? So what you would want to do in that situation is probably set up an option. Again, it's state specific, so we have to look into the states, pull the resources, talk to the attorneys, make sure we're pulling the right documents together for you. But I would say if you're going to do something like that and they didn't have 100% or say 20% down payment, where it's a traditional type mortgage, even if it's seller financing, you'd want to do an option. And the option would be something like, you're going to pay XYZ every month as a tenant. We're going to contribute this much of your monthly payment into a fund, and you have to get like an escrow account. You do it legitimately, put a certain amount into the fund. As long as they pay every single month, as long as they maintain the property, as long as you can do an inspection every month to make sure things are as they are, as long as they're willing to make improvements to the property, right? You put all this in your contract, in your option. Then you will take that down payment and apply it towards their purchase over the next 12 months, 24 months, 5 years, whatever you want it to be. So that way, if something goes wrong, if they don't pay you, then you just exercise your option to cancel the contract. And now you're in a straight tenant relationship. Obviously, you'd have to go through an eviction and all that. And as we know, that has its own process. But an eviction for a failed, properly structured, properly documented rental relationship is a lot easier than going through a foreclosure, or even worse, if you built this as a sale and those people move in and you act as if it's a tenant, there's a certain amount of time that person could stay in the property, and then they actually would be entitled to possession of the property, even though you own it. So we don't want to have that problem. We want to make sure that we're thinking about those things before we build that original contract. So, and the answer is second half of that, are you precluded from putting a balloon payment on the loan? That's a Dodd-Frank question, to be honest with you. If you're doing owner-occupied financing and you're going to use a balloon payment, you have to have in your loan documents a minimal amount of time. The last time I checked, and this is what we were going to do the research on, I believe it's 8 years. You have to amortize that loan over an 8-year period in order to have a balloon at the end. You can't have a 2-year balloon on an owner-occupied sale, right? Where the borrower is owner-occupying the property. You can't have like a balloon payment that's due in 2 years on any kind of owner-occupied loan. So you have to make sure you structure it so that you're in compliance with the Dodd-Frank Act in this case. So I hope that answers that question. And obviously, if you're in the mastermind, you ask me that question, we're going to put our team together. We're going to do all the research. We're going to pull the legal documents. We're going to give you samples of, step by step what you would need to do to protect yourself there. And we'll give you the attorneys, the attorney contact information so that you can call them and make sure that you're getting it all set up right the first time. So that's what you would get with the mastermind for that first scenario. So thanks, Sherry. I appreciate that question. Khalil, my friend Khalil. Getting clear on exact methods of attaining my car wrapping business revenue and profit goals. I feel we're throwing darts at marketing and hoping to convert there. Yelp, Google, now hire 2 salespeople as well to go out and chase business. Not exactly a question, but it would be great to be able to have a clear plan with proven ways of attaining revenue goals. Yes, a plan would be essential here. So I happen to have done a little bit of work on this, Khalil. Amy, my fiance, and also my operations partner here at KJE, spent a lot of years in the corporate high-end car sales business from a marketing perspective. So she was doing digital marketing for a company called O'Gara and some others. These are companies that sell Ferraris and Lamborghinis and Bentleys and McLarens and these high-end cars, right? To high net worth people. And one of the things that she and I spent a lot of time talking about, Khalil, was a lot of these people want to wrap these cars for a certain, either they want a certain effect, they want an addition to the car. But there are a lot of things you have to look out for. Number one that we discovered was liability. You want to make sure that when you're wrapping these cars, that you're protecting yourself and you have the right insurance policies in place so that you're not just damaging someone's personal property if something goes sideways on it. The cost of repairing that issue could eliminate all of your profits very quickly. So we want to make sure that we're looking into that in our process. Another thing is, if you're going to go, there are two ways to work at this. You can either go for the corporate angle, which would be like the O'Garas of the world, where you're a car wrapping entity and you're going to try and sell into the corporate fleet world, whether it's enterprise or going to Mercedes. If you go to Mercedes and you get a rental car from them, right? If you have a Mercedes, you drop your car off for service, they give you a card at the bottom that says Mercedes courtesy car. You've seen that, I'm sure. So if we're wrapping for fleets, then it's a whole different marketing campaign to get into the fleet and to be able to support that than it is going through Yelp and selling things one-off. So the first question I would ask you, Khalil, when you're thinking about this is, how much money do we want to make? What's our expense to wrap a car and what's our profit margin to wrap a car? And who is our exact target client that can afford that? Then we have to go find that marketplace. What's it look like? We would want to do a deep dive gap analysis, or a marketing analysis to see what other companies like yours are doing, how they're marketing, how their digital marketing is set up, what's their cost structure, what's their timeline to execute, what kind of liability protections do they have. So we want to go do basically a market analysis, which is what you would get from the Mastermind. We would go in there, we would start making the phone calls, we would do secret shoppers, if you will. We would find out what all the competitors, not all the competitors, maybe we would pick 3 to 5, and we would do that analysis. We'd write the report, and then what we would present back to you is our findings. And then if you wanted to work with us directly to build out your company, then you could hire us to do that work, and we would come up with an agreeable structure that's good for both of us to do that work. Or at the very least, you would have the report with the market analysis, with all the vendors that we use to do that research, so you could go off and build it on your own, but you'd have that launching platform to do that. So let me see if I answered this right. So we're trying to get the car wrapping business. We hired 2 outside salespeople. That's great. But again, who are they selling to and how much do they have to sell? And what is your sales platform in order to make sure those people are successful? Have you given them the blue ocean or the red ocean to market in? We will go from there. Sherry, you're in Ohio. Ohio is a attorney state, so we would want to look into the attorney foreclosure laws on that and build it that way. And then also we would get you connected with one of my favorite foreclosure attorneys there. See, here's the thing. For the Ohio deal, you may, even though you're originating a loan, it may seem like you want to originate the loan from the perspective of loan documents and funding, right? But I look at it from 2 ways. You want that piece, but really you want to know is what happens if things go wrong. So we want to talk to the attorneys on the foreclosure side. What is the law in foreclosure to get possession of my property back in Ohio if I end up doing seller financing to an owner-occupied person? And so now you have the back end, how to sidestep the problem. So that's where I would start. Getting the loan documents is easy. Like I said, if they're putting 20% down or whatever, we can very quickly get the Ohio statuted loan document set. And it's probably in my file already because I've done loans in about 45 states. So I may not have a loan package for Alaska, but I certainly have one for Ohio, and I can find the Alaska one if we need it. So I hope that answers your question there about Ohio. For Sherry and Khalil, I hope that helps you kind of think about how to launch this car wrapping business from the beginning. We also wrap for fleet vehicles. Awesome. Darlene, super helpful. Awesome. How long does it usually take for your team to put together a report analysis on specific situation? So what I'm asking for is 7 days notice. I have the team to do the research. I have the vendors to pull all the information together. So if we're gonna do a webinar once a month, and I want the webinar to be, I think I put on the second Friday of every month. From 10 to 12, we're gonna try and keep this consistent. It'll be a Friday thing from 10 to 12 every second Friday, so you guys can set your calendar and you know exactly what to expect. As long as you submit the question to me 7 to 10 days ahead of time, that gives me time to do the research, build the report so I can put it in the archive, make sure everything is ready, so that we can present it. And then what we'll do on the mastermind is just like we're doing now. We'll get on the mastermind. Again, I would prefer if we're not in webinar format where I can see you and you can see me and we can interact. So the mastermind will ultimately have that interaction piece to it. But we will present the report, take you through it, explain our findings, how we found it, put it in the archive. And then again, you'll have the option. If you'll have the report, you'll have the vendor, you'll have the contact information, you can go do whatever it is you need to do with that. And if you want us to further support you through that, then there's a fee structure that goes with that. But ideally, I would prefer, obviously I want to make fees. We're all in this to make money, right? But my primary interest is in helping you grow and be successful and to contribute back. So the reports are going to be comprehensive and literally will be things that you can do on your own and you will get success with and you will get protection with. If you choose, again, that you want additional support, we are there for you and happy to do it. So we'll figure that out. So 7 to 10 days is what it takes. We'll present it there live online, and then we'll go from there. Any additional questions? Let's see. If you come up with another question, let me know. Otherwise, I will talk about another case study. Another case study, things that have happened in the last week. And David, if you think of anything, just put a question here, because I'm sure there's things that you and I are working on that I'm not thinking about right now that we're working through for clients. Another case study. The client came to me for marketing advice. And originally, what they wanted was to build a huge company. And I said to them up front, we really don't need a huge company. We've already got, and we've already built for you a network of people. You've got somewhere around 2,000 people that already know you, like you, trust you, and are engaged in your platform. So why do you want to go so big when you really could spend all your time and energy supporting and getting to know the 2,000 people you already have in your group? Well, this person didn't take the advice. They wanted to go big. So we went in and we started to build them this huge marketing platform. Remember, I started this webinar with a really basic but so important lesson, which is the difference between branding, marketing, sales, and delivery. So this person insisted that branding was the way to get sales. And they focused all their time on branding, and they spent a lot of money on branding. And they got a great brand. They really did, but they didn't make any sales. And it wasn't long before the revenue on the company turned upside down, and they had to completely rethink their position. And what they ended up doing was abandoning the big marketing concept and cold sales and going back and supporting their existing client base. And this is, again, one of those case studies that I would want to present, because it's an explanation of not going after the shiny object, having a clear vision of who you're trying to service and what you need to make the money that you want to make in your business, and making sure that you're structured properly so that you're serving those people and not having to start and stop. There's nothing worse for a business in terms of starting and stopping. Why do I say it that way? It's not that starting and stopping is bad, but it takes a lot of energy. Anyone that's been in business and has tried to start a company knows that if you go down the road 6 months and then it doesn't work, you have to stop, back up, realign everyone, create a new business plan, create a new marketing plan, relaunch. It takes, hundreds of hours literally to create a proper marketing plan and to deploy it. And it's frustrating for your team if they don't understand what the vision and the goal is, because it keeps shifting and changing. So we want to make sure that we're getting really laser focused on what our outcome is. And that's the best way to avoid potential problems. It doesn't mean a problem won't happen. What it does mean, though, is if you have a problem and you're on the right path with the right vision, with the right support, with the right vendors, making an adjustment and continuing forward is very easy, costs almost no money and takes almost no energy. It's just a small shift. And you can do that unlimited amount of times until you get the result that you want. But if you go down a path with the wrong blueprint, with the wrong architecture, with the wrong outcome, and then you realize that you did it wrong and you have to back it all up and start over, that can be devastating in terms of time and cost and everything else. So we want to, again, the mastermind is about learning how to not go down the wrong path, learning how not to spend tons of money on vendors that are not going to get you what you need. I'll give you an example. I had an attorney, one of my personal attorneys, who came to me, I don't know, maybe 5-6 years ago, and said, I want to build my online presence and I'm going to use ClickFunnels to use that. Now, I don't know if anyone's familiar with ClickFunnels, but ClickFunnels is basically a communication platform that you have to program. And so, yeah, I heard, oh, yes. So I think that's Christine there, not Ed, but Ed or Christine. If you know ClickFunnels, then you know, and type it in the chat here, Christine or Ed, how long would you say it takes to properly set ClickFunnels up, to program it so that it'll function and get you the outcome that you think you want to have? So I have my opinion about it. I'm curious to see what they say before I say anything. So in this case, the attorney wanted to create a ClickFunnels account. And I said, look, what happened? And they said, well, I have a vendor. The vendor wants to charge me $25,000. I said, wow, that's really interesting. Where do you get your business from? My business is entirely localized. I make all my money by working by referral only with my existing clients in a specific area of Los Angeles. And that's what I'm targeting, mostly because I can't go outside the area, because if I have to go to court, I want to be in a certain geographic vicinity to the courthouses. And two, my business practice is very specific to a certain kind of business. So I said to the client, I go, well, you know, you don't need to spend $25,000 for that. And honestly, you don't need ClickFunnels at all. What you need is a controlled Facebook group where you're taking your clients and you're adding extra value. You're taking care of the herd that you're already building. And I can put that together for you for $5,000. And it was amazing to me that what the guy said to me was, well, that's interesting, but I'm going to pay the $25,000. I said, okay, go pay the $25,000. I can tell you today, 5 years later, this man paid $25,000 and got zero outcome. If you go look him up, there is no ClickFunnels account. There is no online social presence. There is no webinar series going through. There's no offer for sales. There's nothing. He's still an attorney doing business by referral only. So what did he end up doing and why didn't it work? It didn't work because ClickFunnels wasn't the right solution for a small attorney firm that works in a localized environment, number one. And number two, it takes time since you have to customize it. It could be days or weeks based on the amount of traffic that you're trying to form. In my experience, it would take about 100 hours to properly set up a ClickFunnels account. And you'd have to hire someone really to focus all their effort on that. So you're looking at hiring a consultant that understands how to program ClickFunnels if you're an entrepreneur, because this man was an attorney, right? So he's not going to spend 100 hours setting up ClickFunnels. He doesn't have time. He's working on legal cases. So in my experience, if you're setting up a database, if you're setting up ClickFunnels, it's not just a setup. You have setup, that's part A. Then you have maintenance, and the maintenance is ongoing. Those systems break, the algorithms change, the verbiage has to change, the search engines change the way they interact with those platforms. Facebook changes its branding to Meta and changes its entire infrastructure, right? So you're not just paying the $25,000 to set it up to this attorney. If I was talking to the attorney, you're also going to pay probably somewhere around $60,000 in ongoing maintenance. So do you really want to spend $85,000 in a year to have ClickFunnels for your small attorney firm? Or would you rather spend $5,000 a year and let's bring Fahim into the business, right? Who can very affordably manage your online group and help create your content for you so that you're communicating effectively with your base and taking care of them. How do we decide? We decide by asking one basic question: how much money do you want to make? I don't do marketing for my business if I can't make a 15-to-1 return. And that means if I can't see how I'm going to make a 15-to-1 return, for every dollar I spend, I want to make 15. There's two reasons for that. One, I'm in business to make money, not to practice. I'm not practicing anymore. After 25, 26 years and all the thousands and thousands, hundreds of thousands of hours I put into my practice and learning my craft, I don't need to practice. I want to make money, right? As you all do. So I'm looking for a 15-to-1 return in my marketing efforts, because if I go after it and I can see that and I lose, say I make a 5-to-1. Well, a 5-to-1 return will make you a profit. If I go into it expecting a 2-to-1 return or a 1-to-1 return, which is a lot of even ClickFunnels, right? If you go into ClickFunnels, they're going to tell you you're searching for a 1-to-1 return. That's success in ClickFunnels. To me, that's a complete failure. You will not make money doing that. And unless you have that infrastructure I mentioned, you're never going to be able to grow your company. So David wrote here, and so, you know, the 15-to-1 ratio, let me give you an example. Years ago here in California, they came up with a law. If you have a soft story building, that's a building where you can park your cars underneath the building, and it's not like a closed-in garage, it's open, but you park underneath the building and people are living above you. You had to retrofit all those buildings for earthquake safety. And so I ran a campaign. I put together the financing, I checked out the marketplace, I went to the contractors, I built a campaign, I put it out there. It cost me about 100 hours of work and maybe $10,000. I put all into the online, into the materials, into everything that went into it. And I got one client. Out of that entire transaction, one client. So I spent $100 and $10,000. I got one client. That sounds like a failure, right? Well, I go back to how much money did I make? Remember, I'm not working for practice. I'm working for money. That one client, over the 7 years that I worked with him, paid me about $680,000. So I spent $10,000 and about 100 hours to implement it. I got one client and I made $680,000. Now type in the chat, was that worthwhile? Would you do that? So again, it's about knowing the outcome, knowing what we're trying to do. I honestly didn't want 300 clients from that because I wouldn't have been able to manage it, right? I would have had to build a huge team and a whole legal situation, right? And you're exactly right, Sherry. Let's calculate the ROI and the return on investment, whether we're buying a single property or we're doing a business deal or we're doing a financing deal or we're starting a mastermind. It's got to make sense. And so the first question I'm always going to ask in my mastermind of you is, what's our outcome? What are we trying to get to? How much money do we need to make? How many clients do we need to make that money? Because maybe it's not sexy. Maybe we run a $10,000 campaign and spend 100 hours, right? But we make $680,000, and that's great. And even more than that, because of the way I work, all the people that I met as a result of that relationship, the trust attorneys, the lenders, the title people, all those people became vendors and friends of mine. So I expanded my network, and those people send me referrals for other types of business. The soft story business, I got away from it. Why? It fizzled out. A lot of people solved their problem. I got my one client. I was busy doing that work for a lot of years, and I enjoyed the work, and it was fine. So again, the mastermind is also about identifying what it is we actually want and what our outcome is, so we don't spend a lot of time, money, and expose ourselves in the wrong places. David wrote, it's similar to the mastermind, value for investment. That's right. And knowledge creates success. It's true. It's true. When you're around people, in my career in real estate just alone, I've worked in environments that have literally 800 years of combined experience. These are lawyers that have been in the business for 60 years before they retired, and operators and lenders and private hedge funds and high net worth private offices. And so we see how they all work differently. And it's in that collective knowledge base that I'm able to share with you what I've learned and all the resources, which again, the idea is save you money, get a better outcome, and let's not spend the 25-year learning curve that it took me or so many others to figure this out. Because if we're just aligned in the right place, that's a better way to do it. That's a much better way to do it for me. So those are a few of the examples of what you get when you join the mastermind. It's really kind of a fluid and open relationship. The structure is there once a month. You put your question in 7 to 10 days early. We develop a full comprehensive report with all the resources. We present it on the webinar once a month, and we're going to give you a free hour. So the bonuses alone, just so you, let me tell you about the bonuses. When you join the webinar, when you join the mastermind, it costs $12,000 a year. I've already helped people capture back more than the $12,000 because they did a bad business deal and they came to me for advice. And in 10 minutes, I was able to solve the problem and get them their money back that they had spent with somebody else. So it's about preserving money. It's about getting the right advice the first time and not wasting time. But we also get bonuses. So the webinar is a bonus. The archive is a bonus, because as I go through this, we're going to start creating these reports and keeping them. So there's going to be hundreds and hundreds of reports in all different industries that you can leverage whenever you need them. So you don't have to pay to find out how to execute something. You'll already have access to it. So those reports, we charge $5,000 per report to create those for one-off clients that are not part of the mastermind. We're also going to give you 3 transactions a year. So whether it's a business financing transaction or a real estate related financing transaction, we're going to give you 3 a year as long as you're a client and you're paying and you're in good standing. What's that mean? So I'll give you an example. I recently, I've been approached by several clients that want SBA lending. And so we're looking through the better SBA options. SBA is a cumbersome kind of experience to begin with. The underwriting is tough. It's very detail oriented. Imagine you're dealing with the government. So when you're dealing with the government, even though it's a private bank or a federally insured FDIC bank, the government is insuring that loan to the bank, right? So they have to jump through a whole bunch of hoops, and they have to make sure everything is correctly documented, which can be kind of a pain in the ass. But there are other programs. So I'm in the process right now. I found a new program. It's a rapid credit line. As long as you make $200,000 a year, they'll give you 30% of your gross earnings verified on a tax return. And there's some other stipulations. So I put my application in already. Why? Not that I need a loan. What I'm doing is I'm testing the timelines. I'm testing the vendor experience. I'm testing the platform. I want to make sure that when I roll this offer out to all of you or to anyone that comes to me and says they want an SBA loan that qualifies, that's in this category, that I know exactly what's going to happen and how they're going to experience it. Because I don't like to do things to anyone that I haven't done to myself first. Same thing with insurance policies. So any kind of thing that can help you grow your business, if I'm offering it, I've either evaluated it closely, or I'll tell you right up front, this is the first time we're going through this, so let's be patient while we experience what's going to happen. Or I've already done it to myself and I know exactly what's going to happen. And I've evaluated all the vendors in the industry that are best of class, so that I'm giving you good resources. I'll give you an example on insurance. One of my experiences, I was 30 years old. I'm 48, almost 49 now. So when I was 30, I was introduced to this concept of using insurance and creating your own bank and using an insurance policy to promote further net worth and growth goals for an individual. And I went to the best guy in the country, a guy named Doug Andrew. And what I found out was he built it, but he built it for his own commission. What's that mean? When you build these insurance policies, the insurance agent gets paid up front for several years of commissions to come. So they get most of their money on day one when you fund the policy, and then they get paid a small piece for several years afterwards as an annuity, if you will. So in this case, the insurance company built the most expensive policy they could so that they would get the biggest commission. Not really about, thanks, Sherry. Good to see you. Or not see you, but good to interact with you. So they built the policy so that they get the biggest return, the biggest commission, but they didn't actually look at what's sustainable for a 30-year-old. When I was 30, it was going into 2005-ish, and things were great, right? Kind of like the real estate market we just came through. And they never asked the question, how are you going to support this policy if the markets turn? Because we know that there's a business cycle and the economy is going to go up and go down. So when the economy goes down, what are you going to do? You're going to be in the middle of this commitment, potentially. Never asked me the question. Well, what happened was the economy did change, and I ended up imploding that insurance policy because I couldn't continue to pay for it. And I lost about $70,000. Now, what I learned is two things. One, there was no reason to build a huge insurance policy like that. You can build insurance policies and get the exact same result over a period of years and do it in a very affordable way that's in alignment with your actual financial outcomes for your business. That's number one. Number two, there's certain policy types that you want to use and others that you don't. This company was using universal indexed life, which ended up being the most expensive for the consumer with the highest risk. But they never told me all that. They just said, this is the way to do it. Well, I learned that you can do the same thing with a whole life policy with guaranteed returns, very low risk, very little, annual or monthly commitment in terms of money, and you can build as many as you want. So you stack them and layer them, a lot like when you're investing in bonds, you build a ladder. And so it was my experience all those years ago and my loss that made me really want to investigate what happened. I didn't get angry. I went on with my life, but I made it my business to learn everything there is to know about insurance policy stacking and using insurance policies as investment grade. And so I've now built a very successful platform of insurance agents and companies that just do that. And they do it in all different kinds of ways. They do insurance premium financing, they'll do straight insurance, all these different things. But what's great about it is if you own a business and you use it correctly, you can actually use it as an expense against your business and it becomes a tax deduction. So we're going to teach you how to do that. We're going to provide you with the CPAs and the attorneys to validate it so that you can have your own independent protection over and above what I tell you. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a CPA. I'm just a guy that's been doing this for 25 years and has experienced a lot of different things. And I've aggregated the information along with the resources and the professionals that are going to protect you. So that's what you get when you join the mastermind. And I'm really hoping that a lot of you will. We're in about an hour and a half. If there's any questions additional, or if you want to do a case study, I'm happy to spend, I put 3 hours in here because I didn't know how long we would take. But if you're interested, all you have to do, and I'll put it here in the chat, is email me at this address and tell me you're interested in joining the mastermind. We'll send you out the contract and the payment link, and you're in. Anyone that's on this particular webinar, I happen to know all of you. So the application process would be very simple. If we're bringing in people that I don't know, then we're going to take them through the application, make sure they have a business that we can help, make sure that they're of the right intention, that they have the right resources, and that they're going to be, really successful. So thank you, Darlene. I appreciate that you enjoyed the event, and I'll just hang around for another minute or two. And if anyone has a question, go ahead and type it in the chat so we can address it. But otherwise, that's my pitch. 25 plus years of experience, 3,000 vendors, a lot of mistakes, a lot of successes, and an opportunity to give you a resource to do all the research for you and give you the vendors and make sure that you are set up for success more than likely the first time, right? Measure twice, cut once. That's what I learned in my woodworking career back when I was a kid and I was building grandfather clocks for my family and my parents. They have one in their house now. But those mistakes of not really thinking it through and understanding what the pitfalls are more costly than taking the time up front to do the research and get the right information, the right vendors. So that's what the mastermind is all about. And I'm looking forward to serving. I'm looking forward to getting to know all of you and helping you through your challenges. If you felt like this was helpful and you learned something, give me a thumbs up or a, oh yeah, or a thank you so much in the chat. And if you have a criticism, give me that too, because I'm not arrogant. I'm about growing, getting better, having better resources, having better success with less effort, spending more time with my family, spending more time on my health, and serving my community. And this is the first opportunity for me to really grow my community in this way. And I'm actually incredibly excited about it. And I feel very fortunate to be able to do it. So thank you. Thank you, Love. Thanks, Ed. Go ahead everyone, let's wrap this up. And I have the recording. So if you want a copy of the recording, again, just email me, kirk@kirkjaffe.com. I'll get you a copy of the recording, and let's get to work, people. Let's make some money. Talk to you soon. Have a great day and appreciate all of you. Thanks.